Live from the Talking Joe studios. It's Talking Joe.
You seem normal.
And hey, we're live! Welcome to Talking Joe, where today we will be talking about Total Action Force, The Battle Years, the Kickstarter that is currently on Kickstarter. No, the Kickstarter is currently... well, you get it. The Kickstarter that is currently live. It's finishing very shortly, Friday, June the 4th. So still time to get in there. It's a 176-page hardback book which tells the story of Action Force during the period where the toy line was closely associated with the British comic Battle. It tells the story of the people who created the Action Force universe and features things like character profiles and toy dioramas. And joining me to talk about it is former Talking Joe host. It is the main man. It is, if I could find it, where have you gone? It is Steve. Shake that toy from side to side.
And after that very colourful intro, welcome to my cave.
slightly less.
It's nightfall in the outback, boys and girls. It's going to get scary. Hello, Mark.
Yeah, Steve. Great to have you on.
My pleasure, buddy. You do all the heavy lifting. I just talk.
I feel like we've been on loads of shows together, but we've literally only appeared on one, I think.
We have talked in each other's ears many times, but never been in dialogue. Yeah. Well, apart from the 100th episode of Talking Joe. That was a blast. Very good.
So you're here to support me in this endeavor while we talk to the man of the hour. So we've got Brian Hickey, who is joining us. So Brian has worked for a number of acclaimed toy designers like Boss Fight Studio, designing the packaging for a number of their licensed products, including Bucky O'Hare and Sam and Max. And he's also worked on a number of other books along with Paddy Len, and this we're going to be talking about their Action Force book, which is the third book that they've worked on previously. Total Retaliation, a guidebook to the G.I. Joe figures in line with the G.I. Joe movie Retaliation, and the Total Vitruvian Hacks Volume 1. So without further ado, let's have an intro for Brian.
Gee, Mark, what are we gonna do today?
The same thing we do every day, Mark. Make jingles for our new guests. It's Paddy and Brian. Yes, Paddy and Brian. One is a writer, the other is trying to take some photographs for Kickstarter bucks. It's Paddy and Brian, Brian.
There we go. I bet you weren't expecting that.
No, totally not. That's absolutely fantastic. And that picture with the yoke on my head, where'd you get that? That's brilliant.
The internet. Everything is on the internet now. Beware.
Oh God. I love getting introduced on podcasts. When Chris introduces me on the Full Force, he always makes up these kind of weird middle names, and cracks me up every time. But that takes the biscuit there.
Cool. So we're not talking comic bursts. We're talking Action Force.
Yes.
So we're in the final straight for your Kickstarter. So let's click this, and so this is what we're talking about. It is the the Kickstarter book. This is what it's all about. Do you want to give us the sort of brief overview? What should we know about it, essentially?
Well, this is the book. It's a hardback book. It's slightly oversized, 176 pages, and it's going to tell the story of Action Force, but with a focus on, obviously the toys are a big part of it, but in addition to the toys, there's a big focus on the creators of Action Force. So the creators of Action Force, we define them as people at Palatoy on one side. So the toy designers, the marketing people, the manufacturing and engineering people. But then there's also the kind of mythology of Action Force. You know, so Action Force was promoted through the comic battle. That was kind of the content marketing that drove the toy line. So you have the creators on that side as well. So you've got comic people, you've got writers like Jerry Day, like Scott Goodall, James Nicholas, and then you have artists like Banyo, Cam Kennedy, John Cooper, just to name a few of a wealth of creators on that side. And as it happens on the comic side of it, those creators were the best in class for British comics at that time. We're talking the leading writers and leading artists in the British comics industry from, that had reputations going way back into the 70s and beyond, and were top of the game in the 80s. So this book essentially is going to tell their story. We're going to highlight who those creators were, tell their individual stories, bringing it all back to the overall story of Action Force. And like I said at the start, the toys are a really big part of this because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So there'll be lots of toy photos in there, updated data files for all of the Action Force characters, and it'll be a great addition if you've got an interest in Action Force. If you're a collector of Action Force, this is going to be a great book to have in your collection.
Excellent. And yeah, I'll mention now that we've got the live stream comments on there turned on. So if you want to interact with us while we're live, then do feel free to leave a comment via YouTube, or I think even Facebook Live should also work. So yeah, you can send us a link. I click into the show. And already we've got Chief chiming in. I bet Mark has at least another 3 jingles planned for this show. Yes.
Calling your bluff, Mark. What you gonna do, buddy?
We'll see. Count them as we go. And yeah, book looks fab. Thanks, Chief. So this is the website up here. So we can see that you're at, I think, almost 70% funded now. Just over, almost getting up towards 19,000 of your 27,000 goal. And yeah, so head on over to the Kickstarter page to find out the full details of the packaging, what is involved, and the different tiers and things. So that's what it is all about, and we'll be going into the detail of some of these images and so on later on. But so and there's some interesting tiers to be unlocked as well. So yeah, I really want it to be successful, so we can see some of those tiers, because I've backed it. I want to get some of those top tiers coming in now. But so the book is in at €120, £105, or $145 for the basic tier, which just gets you the book. And I know that sometimes when I backed Kickstarter before, I've been a little bit shocked by paying a fair amount for the initial Kickstarter, and then after I've backed it, being asked for more money for the postage, which is sometimes quite steep. So I think what you guys have done is to kind of cover that postage shock up front by having it being an all-inclusive price and having the postage as part of the price.
Absolutely. So I mean, it's a high entry price, as you say. We're targeting a market that we feel is going to be in the hundreds. rather than in the thousands. So when you're producing, you know, a high quality book, it's a hardback book. It's going to be, you know, beautifully bound, printed, slightly oversized, as I said earlier, and that the unit cost for one book for you know, when you're only making, you know, a few hundred of them, is particularly high. If we'd have felt the market was much bigger, like maybe into the thousands, that would have brought the unit cost way down. But so we know it's a high risk Kickstarter for us. We understand that, but we also decided, like as you mentioned there, to build the postage fee into it. So the price that you pay when you back this is all you're going to pay. You're not going to pay any more. There's no other extras to be surprised with down the line, in terms of kind of cost for the backers. So that's and that shipping cost includes you know, it's not going to be just shoved in a soft back envelope. It's going to go in a proper box. It's tracked worldwide shipping anywhere in the world. So that's we're doing it right. You know, there's only, you know, we have a lot of experience, you know, producing books and shipping books from our previous projects that we've worked on. So we know how important it is to make sure everything is wrapped up carefully. And if anybody ever purchased like a copy of Total Retaliation from us or Total Vitruvian Hacks, you know that we put a lot of care into how we pack those books up and send them out. So that same level of care and that attention to detail, that's exactly how we're going to fulfill all the orders for the backers here too. So everything's built into the one price. It covers everything, and it is tracked international shipping. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, that's covered in your backer pledge level.
And is this going to be a case where you've got some people helping you with your shipping and getting it out, or is it going to be delivered to one of your guys' houses, and you're going to have a room full of books for a little while?
It'll be delivered to. Probably delivered to me, and I actually have kind of a workspace, a dedicated workspace and a studio space. So I'll have the space to hold on to the books. They won't be in our possession for very long anyway, because we're only producing enough books to fulfill the pledge levels. So really, once they come in, it's only like a few days then to kind of get all those orders processed and out the door. So, you know, they'll have a very short shelf life in my studio before they're on the way to the various backers.
Yeah, your local post office is going to be in for a shock one day when you come in, though. With the
well, they know us down there. My wife is an artist, so she's down there every day, shipping off different pieces. So she sells a lot of art. So she's very well known in the local post office, and they know me because sometimes I have to go down and bring a load of packages down there. So we're kind of we're kind of top customers in the cell.
Got a loyalty card.
No
frequent flyer.
I was going to stick up on the screen some of you know, for the people who might be watching this who may be more familiar with the G.I. Joe brand, for example, and or you know, just too young to be kind of had the awareness of what was coming out back in these Action Force era. I was going to flash up some of the images of the cardback promotions from back in the day to kind of give us a flavour of the kind of things that we're talking about. So this was the first series 1 of the Action Force figures. Yeah, and kind of using that established Action Man brand. So it's, you know, it was basically a shrunk down Action Man, really, wasn't it, when it first launched, with, you know, very generic types, you know, the Frogman, the pilot, the diver, you know, those kind of things, without, you know, too much sort of you know, the things that would follow in terms of the personality and the kind of the teams and so on.
Well, specifically what happened when Series 1 was developed, I mean, because everybody knows that it was the success of Kenner's kind of Star Wars line that kind of, you know, prompted some of the bigger toy makers like Hasbro and obviously Palitoy to come up with their own 3 3/4 inch figure line. So in the case of Action Force, when they were discussing ideas of what could this 3 3/4 inch line be, it was Mike Taylor, the Action Man marketing manager, who suggested that they just be straight up copies of the best-selling Action Man, you know, figures and outfits of that period, right. And hence if you do a bit of digging online, you'll see that all those Series 1 Action Force figures have a 12-inch counterpart.
Wow. Okay. So they're straight up sort of miniaturizations almost of the best-selling big Action Force, Action Man figures at the time.
Which is why it's such an eclectic mix. I mean, you've got a diver and a German stormtrooper, sharing the same
much of this guy. Is he rare or just controversial? You don't see him cropping up on the Facebook pages quite so much.
No, it's I don't know how rare the German stormtrooper is. I mean, it's I picked up an Action Force lot there recently, and there was 2 of them in the lot.
Oh wow!
No accessories. So I mean, I have no idea, but of course on the groups, it's mostly Series 2 and Series 3 Action Force that you see coming up for sale. You don't see a lot of the Series 1.
At what year do you think it was that Action Force first grabbed your attention?
I probably only came onto my radar. Well, I can remember the TV commercial that would have been advertising Series 1 Action Force.
Oh, wow.
And it had things like the British Marine or the British Paratrooper and the AF3. They were featured in the commercial. But it was really, I only started to sit up and pay attention when Series 2 started to be marketed the next year. So in 1983, there was a big promo across a lot of the IPC titles where they were giving out free Action Force figures with the comic. And I picked up a copy of Battle, which had the Z-Force radio operator, came free with that. And really at that point, that's what...
No!
Yeah, that's a brilliant
free action
gift,
figures with your comic book.
The comic was only like about 25p or something as well. So
insane. Did he come with accessories?
He did. He had his green cap, he had his radio backpack, and he had his rifle. But unlike the Star Wars figures, he was, it's the same quality as Star Wars, but you had maybe a few more accessories, and he could hold his weapon in 2 hands, which the Star Wars figures couldn't do. And I had a few of those kind of Palitoy Kenner Star Wars figures anyway at that time. And when I saw this for free with a comic that was 25p, I was totally in a
smart bomb.
Get that. This must have been probably 2 years on the heels of Star Wars, do you think? Was what year were those hitting the shops? Do you know?
I mean, I was where I grew up. We didn't have Star Wars in our local shop, Star Wars toys. So the first time I saw Star Wars was probably only in about 1980, 82. Anyway, I wasn't even aware of Star Wars figures at that up until then. And the first Star Wars figure I ever got was a Han Solo in his Hoth battle gear. So we were already well into the Empire Strikes Back line by the time I even got any Star Wars figures. So this would have Action Force came on the radar fairly quickly for me after I got introduced to Star Wars. And
Steve, what you're a little bit younger than me, I think, but was
only a little.
What stage did the Action Force brand? Were you aware of it? How far along was it before?
Look, there was a trickle that reached South Africa, and certainly, being a little bit younger, it was courtesy of the slightly older generation. So I had a big brother, and I had and his mates, and so I do have a familiarity with certain Action Force Palitoy molds, but a lot of it was, it was the dawn of the internet when I really got to grips with this stuff, and the amazing resource that is Blood for the Baron. And it's been a wonderful treasure trove of discovery. For instance, the man from the United Kingdom who put me onto Talking Joe for the first time, Jim Godfrey, gifted me the AF3 for my wedding as a wedding gift. Nice. Yeah. I expressed an interest in that vehicle, and lo and behold, on the big day, I had a surprise unboxing, which I actually did at my wedding, and it was the AF3. Beautiful. It is. The quality speaks for itself. It is definitely of a slightly different lineage than Hasbro's G.I. Joe. The rubber tires that are standard is the standout feature for me. The big chunky colors and parts, wonderful. Brian, I have a question for you though. It's that same kind of like, you can be Beatles fans or Elvis fans, but you can't, one has to trump the other. Are you a plastic man or a paper man? Oh dear.
Elvis over the Beatles any day.
All right, very good. Yeah. You look a little bit rock and roll with the slick comb back. Mm-hmm.
That's
the toys, yeah.
I mean, I would have. Well, when it comes down to the Action Force vehicles, I'm going to find myself pretty much all the time in the Palitoy camp. It's, okay, they had different design processes and different manufacturing processes from Hasbro, probably working to tighter budgets and and tighter timeframes. But those kind of pressures bring out the best in a creative team. And when you look at, say, Bob, Brecken, and the rest of the design team at Palitoy, what they produced with so little time and so little money really was, phenomenal. So what I absolutely love, what the Hasbro's G.I. Joe, the vintage G.I. Joe and the vehicles that come with that, when it comes to making a call between Action Force and Hasbro, I'm in the Action Force camp 100%.
Well, that possibly would have been my follow-up question, but I'm curious to know if you're more of a comic books fan or action figure fan. I mean, is it the plastic or is it the paper? I mean, I see a mixture of both on your back wall there. You certainly got some fantastic Star Wars vehicles in mid-flight.
I'm definitely more of a comics guy, and that's, I think, myself and Paddy, why it works so well, the two of us working together, is that when it comes to Paddy's a huge comics fan too. Don't get me wrong here. He's a massive fan of comics, but when it comes to the kind of the knowledge base on Action Force, Paddy's got the toys. He's like a living encyclopedia of toys, and I'm probably his counterpart on the comic side of it. Dream team. So it works really well, and you can see that. I mean, again, I love the toys, absolutely love them, but my Battle Action Force comic collection, I'd say that's probably my most prized part of my overall collection. And, and when it comes to the Action Force mythology, that's where my head is definitely, deep in that particular category. The artwork, the writers, and that whole story there, in terms of when I say story, I mean the continuity that those writers and artists created for the comic, which is pretty great.
You mentioned at the top that they were the very best in the business, which is an interesting contrast to how the Marvel comic came about, where it was literally the last guy they asked was Larry Hama. and we got so lucky as G.I. Joe fans that he was tapped, because it was that perfect storm of like a guy with a story to tell. But across the pond, it seems like the comic books were absolutely the dream team. From art, story, writing, editorial. So it's an interesting contrast. And while I was actually on the Talking Joe show and talking about Blue Ninjas and the Arashikage and Granny Demon, the tonic that kind of kept me on the straight and narrow was concurrently reading Battle.
Oh, wow.
I was reading, yeah. So, I mean, they are night and day. You've got 6 degrees of separation from from Snake Eyes or Snake Eyes' successors on the one hand, and then you've got these very grizzled, realistic stories where oftentimes you can't really fall in love with the cast because they are slaughtered mercilessly or realistically. We'll just say that, there was a lot of pathos in the writing, and it was evident in how realistic the stories were. This wasn't soap opera. This was hard men doing hard things.
It was coming out of I think the
war years,
the war years. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of the people working on the book would have had that firmly in their memories, and also coming from the lineage of the Battle comic before it became then Battle Action Force. That it was a war. You know, it was a war comic with running in parallel to the Action Force stories. You'd have things like Charlie's War, Johnny Red, which was, you know, about the, you know, military stories and you know, for example, the British doing war with the Hun, you know, and that level of violence and disposability.
Well, long before I discovered the G.I. Joe Marvel comic, I had the sort of digests, various war story, those black and white comic books. I lived on an appetite of those. Yeah, on a good helping of those, and also we got a number of the, you know, in classic English or British tradition, the annuals. So Valiant and I'm blanking on the names, but all the sort of like marketed for boys hardcover.
Yeah, the annuals were a big deal. But, you know, coming back to what you were saying there, Steve, you know, I mean, when Battle was formed in the 1970s, it was Pat Mills and John Wagner. They're the guys who created Judge Dredd. They were brought in to put together a war comic that would compete with the war comics that were being put out by DC Thompson, which would have been a big publishing editor at the time. And their brief was, this has got to be more hard-hitting, it's got to be tougher, it's got to be more grisly. You know, this is a comic for kids, but they're given a brief to, like, you know, make it much more hard-hitting than anything that the competitors are doing at that time. And they totally did that. And one of the first things they did was they said, we want to get Jerry Finley Day in here. If we're going to make this the success that it needs to be, we need an ideas guy. So Jerry Finley Day is the first recruit for this kind of, you know, editorial team. And for any viewers who don't know who Jerry Finley Day is, well, he's the guy who created Rogue Trooper for 2000 AD. And he's got a lot of other great writing accolades in the comic Battle. So he was known as an ideas man. He could come up with characters, story ideas. And when IPC won the contract to have Action Force in its kind of publishing portfolio, Jerry Day was the lead writer brought in. So you have this great ideas guy. He has a military background. He's got a reputation for kind of hard-hitting stories. So all of that reputation that Battle had and that Jerry Day had as a writer, all of that got pumped into the Action Force mythology. And in fact, think of one of the first ever stories. When we first see Action Force in print, you see the Prime Minister and the Chief of Police, you know, ruthlessly gunned down by the Black Major when they invade Ascendancy Island. It's pretty hard going stuff. Like they didn't pull any punches from day one, and they kept that going right through the story's entire run, right up till whatever November '86 when it finished up there.
It's amazing that something with so much integrity and hard-hitting realism was pushing a toy.
And being marketed
it's just
to kids as well.
Remarkable. And that's the perfect storm behind the success of both the IPC Action Force comic and Marvel's G.I. Joe, at least in those early days. It kind of devolved into ninja nonsense eventually.
There's great stuff on the Marvel side of it too. I mean, Larry did, and I still think he does some great work as well. I mean, you know, people who listen to the Full Force Comics Burst know that myself and Chris are big fans of Real American Hero. So, you know, it's
I've got you in my ear from time to time as well, Brian. Don't you worry. You're on my rotation, buddy.
I think
Thank you.
Some of the more recent G.I. Joe from Larry Hama does get a bit of stick now and again, and it has its highs and lows, but it's for me it's always enjoyable even during the lows. And the recent issues, I think it's a real particular return to form that
don't get me wrong, Mark. I mean, I think when I was really going for the jugular in terms of the ninja bullshit, it was the latter part of the 155. You know, we all know the era with the G.I. Joe, Featuring Snake Eyes and the Ninja Force.
Yeah, I was going to jump onto the second series just briefly to touch on that. So,
Yes.
and this isn't even everything. So this is 19.
Where's the Robo Skull? Come on.
Yeah, so I decided to pick one image with a lot of stuff on it from the box art, and went with this one. But yeah, so there's a whole bunch of things that aren't even in this image, but it sort of gives the indication of the feel of the line that we had these distinct teams. The red shadows up there in the left corner with SAS, the sort of the more infantry Z Force, the Space Force, more the sci-fi adventures up, with the more of the out there orange, and then Q Force, the C Force side of things. And I think it was that second era where it really came into its own. And I ended up owning quite a big chunk of this, either at the time or subsequently. Yeah, that Z Force camo Jeep actually picked up boxed in a shop, probably, I don't know, 1987. It would have been sort of sitting on the shelf of our local toy shop, and no one picked it up, and it just. Every time I'd go in, I'd look at it and go, "Oh, yeah, need to get that at some point." And that sort of like it was later into the Hasbro era of GI Joe. No, not GI Joe, but Action Force, and it was still there on the shelf. And had to pick that one up.
Chunky toy. Would that be your favorite item from this era?
Ooh, I think the Robo Skull is everyone's favorite, right?
Fair enough. Hard to beat.
But I love this. I love the
Panther,
the black, the Panther, the recolored Vamp. That's a fabulous.
With the rubber tires. I was gutted. The month I got to Australia, this most recent time, and never left, on eBay Oz, there was a lot that had one of those. I think the final bid was like $40. Nothing. It had its steering wheel. It had everything, and I let it slip through my fingers. I don't know.
Yellow steering wheel. Those tiny little touches, just
And the stickering is so detailed and so unique, like an area that is completely devoid of any life. In the Hasbro release, Palitoy saw fit to create like a communications panel. Very cool. And then in the comic books, I think was it Operation Bloodhound, or one of them, an SAS adventure. They're actually like using it. They're working it into the plot. Yeah. Perfect.
I mean, that's one of the genius things. Obviously, Palitoy had this kind of relationship with Hasbro for Action Man, where they could they could resell the 12-inch GI Joe in the UK and Europe, but they were able to draw on that license then to kind of flesh out the Action Force line, and when Series 2 was created, as we see here. But they had a great habit of innovating all the time. So with Action Man, things like the gripping hands, the flocked hair, they're just some of the innovations that Palitoy developed. They continued that habit when it scaled down to Action Force. So the redecoing alone on the Panther there is just one example. Different paint scheme, different sticker applications.
The ATC, Z-Force headquarters.
Yeah, that's not there either.
But even like the mobile missile system there, something as simple as putting like a camo paint app on the missiles was just a stroke of design genius, and it totally elevates that particular toy. So that's that's Bob and the wider design team at Palitoy. They were great at working with very little and being able to come up with something pretty amazing.
Got a favorite item there, Brian?
Well, on that particular shot there, I would be going for the Z Force Jeep, 100%.
Yes.
But I've always loved the Cosmic Cruiser. Been a big, even as a kid, a big Space Force fan.
The Snowspeeder.
Yeah.
Snowspeeder with a Gatling gun alongside. Suck on that, Luke.
And this Gatling gun on the side here, that's the same as the Ram's Gatling gun, just plastered on the side of this vehicle.
And if you look
brilliant
closely,
idea.
the actual body of the Cosmic Cruiser is the same body as the Shadow Track. So they use the AF3 mold, or the AF3 vehicle. They repurposed it A as the Shadow Track and B as the Cosmic Cruiser. So there's lots of retooling in the Series 2 wave.
Yeah, because you see a lot more of on the second-hand market. I think you see a lot more of the Shadow Track than you do of the AF5. But yeah, sort of just innovate it, sort of come up with use the same basic vehicle and sort of spin.
Gotta milk the quid out of the kids by breaking up the Z-Force Jeep into like taking the roof section off the AF3 and selling that as a separate vehicle. Cheeky.
Yeah, the boats, the SAS boat. Yeah, brilliant. And would it be fair to say, Brian, that this second wave would be the main focus of the book, that it probably takes up the biggest amount of the page count?
For sure. So I mean, it's the battle years, so there's a big focus on this whole Series 2, but so you can't talk about Action Force without talking about Series 1, and because everything, all of the tooling for Series 1 was repurposed to create the Series 2 Action Force. So you can't even get into this particular part, this phase of the Action Force story, without doing a bit of a deep dive on the Series 1 side of it first. So really, so while we're saying it's the battle years, that's really what we're focusing on. We kind of have to go right back to the very beginning of the story for context before we can get into this. So the cutoff point really for our kind of minimum funding goal is the Series 2. So we won't deep dive into Series 3. It will get a mention, of course, but the Series 3 is a further stretch goal in the campaign. Look at that, great picture.
And to be fair, probably Series 3 is my absolute sweet spot when I think of Action Force, or indeed G.I. Joe. I'm thinking primarily of this set of characters, probably in part influenced by when I started properly. Thanks, Steve. when I properly started collecting, it was I think probably the first issue that really sort of sticks in my mind is an issue where Mutt is on the front cover of the Battle Action Force comic, and the first figure that I can really remember picking up in the stories is probably also Mutt, and this this is in a kind of pre-internet era where there's a huge amount of information swilling about that you might have see some information on the back of a card, or maybe there'll be a pullout in the summer special issue with a nice colored photo lineup of all of the different figures, so you don't necessarily know what's out available and when, and sort of just rocking up to the toy shop on any given day. It's kind of just a complete lottery as to what you might encounter. So there was only a relatively brief period where you could get in and pick up this stuff, and as a young kid without a huge amount of pocket money, you'd get one figure at a time, and if you're not doing that quick enough, you're just going to get a handful of these figures before they're gone from the toy shelves forever, with no via particularly mainstream secondhand market, really. No likes of eBay. There was a local toy fair that would be held at my school like once a year or something, so that was again pre-internet, no idea when it would happen. You just cross your fingers and hope you'd find out.
Well, that's how I got my collection as a kid, was going to these kind of church fairs and school fairs, which were fundraisers, and I would hit every single one of them, and I definitely picked up some figures for them, for 20p, 30p, something like that. I got an X-wing and a B-wing as well from those visiting groups.
Sweet.
Missing every removable part, I might add.
Yeah.
50p, so that's that, because those figures, they were about £5 at retail, roughly around that time. So my pocket money was 30p. That was my there's a massive price difference. Was I could afford to get a comic and some sweets. That's all I could afford each week. So I had to wait for birthdays. I had to wait for Christmases if I wanted to get any big presents. But when those kind of fundraisers came up for the school or the church, me and my brother, we were down there with our pocket money and we were picking up loads of stuff.
Yeah, that's it. You had
coming home with
when
like
you were little like that. You had 2 cracks at it a year. You had your birthday and Christmas.
That's it. Yeah.
And if you don't luck out, then that's opportunity gone. At the toy fair that was at my school, which was almost a highlight for the year. I was able to pick up a Groucho figure, the Reds
Groucho.
Gung Ho Groucho.
I like Groucho. That's
you can read these things, but you can't say them. But absolutely no idea, what the significance of that particular figure was, because I hadn't been reading those particular issues, so I only knew Gung Ho. So yeah, I could have a little me could have easily tried to get some paint and paint him green, so that he matched the comic look of Gung Ho.
Interestingly, Groucho only makes one story appearance in the pages of Battle Action Force, and that's in the Jungle Terror. And he's got a kind of a fairly major role in the story, but he makes one front cover appearance, and he's painted in his gung ho blue kind of waistcoat, and not the orange that was associated with the toy. So just an interesting tidbit there.
Okay. Can we have a moment for this incredible image? And folks watching this on the playback, feast your eyes. So Duke's got Ripcord's gun. Scarlet and Baroness are having a seat. It looks like Doc's about to side off to Scarlet.
The photographers obviously just tried to stand all of these guys up and just given up. They're just too wobbly, and so he's like, "Yep, you can sit down." Yeah, Destro's got the Baroness's gun.
Got Baroness's rifle. Very good. Yeah, I don't know what missiles scrap iron seems to have. It's not the correct ones. One thing that I do really enjoy, a continuity that I'm sure I'm not the first person to comment on, is that the Z-Force color palette is retained well beyond the Z-Force's expiry date. So you'll see the pack rats have red, and they are, I suppose, marketed as Z-Force pack rats, I assume. Because even in this era, it's still the Action Force boxes and cards. But then if you flick forward like to 1987, 88, when they're marketing the Havoc, all the parts that are orange on the American release, the Action Force release, are done up in red. And the shade of green is a far more emerald green than an olive drab. So I can't help but imagine that that's the designers saying, let's retain at least a bit of the Z-Force palette, so that there's some kind of consistency between the toys.
That's
any truth to that, Brian?
This is one of these things where I kind of need Paddy to kind of weigh in, because to get his encyclopedic knowledge of the whole production.
Well, we'll just take it as red then. The three of us agree. Yeah, done.
Yeah, take it as red, not orange.
Very good. Zing.
So I was going to ping on to the next one, which was this unproduced set of the Special Weapons Force, which is kind of the lost legend of Action Force. Do you want to talk to this a bit, Brian, and how this features in the book specifically?
I have to give a shout out to Dave Tree, because really the information about Special Weapons Force probably wouldn't even exist if Dave Tree hadn't first uncovered that from the Palatoy archive. So big shout out to Dave on that one. This is one of the there was a couple of different kind of paint options produced for Special Weapons Force. This is one of them. There's another one as well, and so essentially there was the design team looked at a number of different forces. Special Weapons Force is one of them. It obviously never made it into production, And then you have there was even an Air Force that was worked up as well, again with a different kind of brown and blue sort of color deco scheme. So this is kind of something that didn't make it. Had the design department at Palatoy, it was closed in 1984, 85. And so had that design department stayed open, maybe we would have seen a special weapons force, make it to market. But with the closure of the design department at Palatoy, then it opened the doors for all of the Hasbro product to come in. So there was no new action force being produced by Palatoy at that point. So, but the Special Weapons Force is kind of something that it has. There's been a big interest in it since all of these kind of photos first came to life. And there's kind of a bit of a mythology is developed about them. And of course, we've had Bombardier get released by the G.I. Joe Collectors Club as part of, I think, their bigger subscription service. So that's kind of made them a little bit more infamous in terms of for collectors. And for all those reasons, we wanted to give Special Weapons Force a feature in the book because we feel it would have been a brilliant add-on to the whole Series 2 lineup. So one of our stretch goals is that if we hit that minimum funding goal, the next stretch goal is to build in a whole bunch of extra pages dedicated to Special Weapons Force. And with that in mind, we contacted a customizer here in Ireland, a great guy, Ray Murphy. And Ray's is the Action Force groups. You've seen his work. It really is magnificent. And Ray put together a complete Special Weapons Force team and vehicles for the book. In fact,
when in doubt, whip it out. Come on, Brian. Go on, Brian. Bring it home.
Let's see what we've got. Okay. Here we have.
Oh, jeepers.
The Special Weapons Force. Of course, we don't know what this vehicle would have been called, so it's the Special Weapons Force Panther. And we have Bombardier. I do have Bombardier's accessories kind of packed away safely somewhere else, but this is a Bombardier, and this is obviously following the color deco from an alternative Special Weapons Force design that was done up by Bob and the guys. We've also got in here, let's see.
Brian, is that figure painted up or is it tooled up in those plastic colors?
These are painted up, so these will be repaints. But you can see there's some nice kind of water slide decals that
clean.
Ray designed up, and he kind of got them on as part of the part of the figure's design. So that's Bottom. Bottom is like the scientist guy. Here,
good name.
A couple more. Again, you're seeing these kind of sans accessories, but in the book, should we unlock these particular pages, they'll be fully geared up and seeing lots of action. Of course, Ray took some creative liberties, and we've got a Special Weapons Force commander.
Brilliant.
And this is something that I really like, and I've seen similar customs, but nothing quite like this. Wolverine and Whirlwind combined.
Had a baby.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Beautiful baby boy. My goodness.
And that's so in the spirit of what we saw before with combining those vehicles to make a new one.
And then here's the
nice
Z-Force attack cannon, which is done up with a Special Weapons Force. And I love, if you can see the decal here, you may not be able to see it. The resolution mightn't be good enough. But again, these are all designed up by Ray and worked in. So
lovely that he added those little paint dabs to the front end, the sort of black in the barrel and on the sides. Very much like the unproduced photograph.
So if that unlocks, what will happen is there'll be 32 pages added to the book. It's going to have data files for all those characters and lots of action photography with Special Weapons Force, in combat against the Red Shadows.
Cool.
Very cool.
There we go. There's your mock-up cover. Do you if you don't unlock the Ian Kennedy cover tier, is that likely to be the final cover, or we're gonna see something different? Do you think?
Well, if we don't unlock the Ian Kennedy tier, then yeah, we're going to run with the Vanyo cover. There'll be some small kind of fine tunings to us, just in terms of kind of crop and size. But effectively, what we're looking at here, this is a montage of different pieces of Vanyo artwork kind of worked into this battle scene. The only piece on that image that's not a Vanyo piece is the Quarrel on the motorcycle, and that is a Gwal. That's taken from one of Gwal's panels, but everything else is kind of mocked up as from different Vanyo artworks, and it's Vanyo would be one of my favorite Action Force artists. Ian didn't do any of the panels or kind of covers, on the run while it was being run in battle. But Vanyo and Ian, I think, have very complementary kind of art styles. They're both very precise. They're both very clean with their line work. And they've got this great understanding of kind of human anatomy, so you get this accuracy in the kind of the posing of the characters with quite dynamic angles. Some of the other great artists, Jim Watson, for example, or John Cooper, they would have kind of a rougher, looser sort of style, which is still beautiful, but not as kind of clean and precise as the Vanyo brothers or Ian Kennedy. So if I had to make a toss up between who would want to do the cover for this, it would have to be either the Vanyo brothers or Ian. We're very fortunate that Rebellion have agreed to license us the artwork from, well, not all of the artwork, but some of the artwork from Battle Action Force, which is why we're able to produce a cover like this, within the budget that we have. And of course, if we hit that top tier stretch goal, we're taking a living legend, or asking a living legend artist to come in and do something brand new of kind of similar complexity, and to do just an absolute killer front cover. So we've a long way to go to hit that goal, but it's never too late. If we can get a big surge in the last few days of the campaign, then that would be a great goal to unlock for sure.
Yeah. And I've got a second hat as well as doing Talking Joe, which is that I help Ian Kennedy with his arranging his art commissions and stuff. So there's probably a little bit of bias there, but I think if he was to get a commission for a piece like this, which would be full colored painted acrylic at A2 scale, featuring a lot of these key Action Force characters and vehicles, it would probably be one of the best Action Force pieces of art ever produced. I would say, without being too biased. I've got my Ian Kennedy piece just to the side here. Let me full screen myself.
This is a beautiful piece.
So here we go. This is a sort of a recreation of a classic G.I. Joe cover in the style of Ian Kennedy. So he did a number of Warlords annual covers, which sort of feature characters kind of on the battlefield running towards the audience. So this particular cover is very much in that style, that tradition. So I thought, when I was coming up with an idea of what I could commission Ian for, that immediately came to mind. But he's been tapped up by a few people for Action Force and G.I. Joe commissions, and with that attention to detail, the military background, the love of drawing, an ability to do very complex technical details for particularly things like planes, that's really in his wheelhouse. And he unfortunately we never saw anything in print from him for Action Force, but he did have a few pieces in battle itself. So definitely contemporary, although most of the biggest part of his career has been on the Commando in terms of the number of covers that he's done for that. Yeah, he's a sort of just a machine in terms of.
Was that commission riffing on the cover to Operation Wingfield? Is that what you were referring to?
Is it issue 3 or issue 4 of G.I. Joe?
Yeah, just a hawk with a beret charging with a whole bunch of nondescript
exactly,
Joes beside him. Mm.
Yeah. It's
we think it's Hawk at least.
Yeah, it's very much that. It was a request to interpret that in his style with a couple of specific tweaks, namely the most significant of which was lose that bloody beret. That doesn't go on Hawk's head.
Who the hell is that?
Exactly.
White Stalker.
Okay, next up. I thought it might just be worth mentioning the print here that you've got on the Kickstarter, and this great print that you're making available.
Yeah, these are the first. Really love this particular the comic cover recreation. So it's a recreation of G.I. Joe #1, but with Action Force characters taking the place of the G.I. Joe characters. And this was created by Eric Aranya and Katrina Cerise Aranya, and would have first made an appearance back at Roll Call. I can't remember the exact year. And when Eric heard that we were putting together this particular book and the Kickstarter for this, Eric very generously offered us this poster that we could reproduce this with some slight tweaks from the Roll Call edition, and offer that as a backer reward for one of our pledge levels. So obviously, big shout out to Eric and Katrina, for putting this together for us. And this is available at A3 size. This is part of the SAS Squad Leader level, where you get the book. It's a signed copy of the book, and then all of these prints. So we have the A3 print, and then to accompany the A3 print, we've done up a series of 8x10 prints of the different teams. So we have our Q Force, Space Force, Z Force, and SAS Force prints, and then what was just dropped today. Is there's going to be an additional 5th print added to that level, which is an enemy team lineup. Yes, there it is there. So there's actually 5 8x10s, plus there is going to be the A3 poster from Eric and Katrina.
Excellent.
Release the Kraken. Him and that bony fella. Most infamous members of
the Skeletron.
Red Shadows. Yes, Skeletron. Thank you, Mark.
Skeletron. Skeletron never had any comic book appearances, and I was even.
Well, what were you going to do with him? Come on, like if you were to put yourself in the writer's shoes, they did well to work Kraken in. Like they found him on ice, and they were going to, I think, clone him to create these amphibious troops for the Baron. Geez, Skeletron.
When we caught
Zombies.
up with Chris McLeod not too long ago, he said that Skeletron was originally designed as the Robo-Skull pilot.
That's correct.
Okay. So, would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, you can
kind of...
and actually, I think he was actually even called Robo-Skull on the original pitch from Bob Brecken.
That's right. He was the Robo Skull, and I think the vehicle might have been called the Skeletron Fighter or something like that. The marketing team said, "No, that's the Robo Skull." And the rest is
Interesting. I wonder if they had initially at some stage thought this is going to be a kind of a Flying Dutchman type horror story. This kind of cursed ghost ship with a skull visage piloted by this undead Skeletron or Robo-Skull creature just floating through the spaceways, wreaking havoc.
Well, that would have been
I'm going to go with that.
And I mean, it's Skeleton. I actually remember as a kid always wanting a Skeletron. I've only got Skeletron in recent years. I never had it as a kid, but I think it was a mail away. For whatever reason, I could never get my hands on one. But it's actually not a bad figure. It fits in nicely with the insanity of some of Baron Armblow.
Well, yeah, Pally with Kraken right there. That's very fitting. The Freak Squad. Awesome.
Now, I know, Brian. I know that you most of your photography is done in camera with not a huge amount of Photoshop fiddling afterwards. What is these streaks coming out from the back of the RoboSkull? Is that practical, or that's
all practical?
Is that chicanery?
No, that's all practical there. All of that's done in camera. So I'm actually shooting on a 20-second exposure for that shot. I've got a handheld torch, so what I'm doing is while the shutter's open, I'm kind of holding the torch up at one of the engine kind of exhaust ports, and I kind of wave it about there for a second, and then pull it away real quick, and then repeat that for all the different engine ports. And I have to do that.
Is insane.
Over the 20 seconds, I had to do about maybe 50 shots to get something that kind of looked the way I wanted it to look. Sometimes the streaks are all over the place. They're not going they're not following the same pattern, because you can't see when you're trying to.
Yeah, you'd have to have pretty insane muscle memory to just like get that exactly right each time. Gee whiz, well done, Brian. Very striking image.
That is most impressive. Most impressive. Okay. I was gonna, before we get into dioramas, I was gonna flip to these. So one of the key components of the book are these kind of spotlights. We've got Facebook users. They've not, I think, registered their name. So thank you, whoever was that left that comment. That is brilliant indeed. That is true. So a big component of the book is these kind of individual character profiles. So here we've got the infantryman. That that's Gual art. I can see. You've noted. Much more earthy kind of, dirty kind of art approach. Jim Watson and Gual, as you say, kind of contrasting to the cleaner lines of Vanyu. Anyway, sorry, Brian.
The Z-Force infantryman was rarely, if ever, actually drawn like the toy, and this is something that you see in the comic side of things quite a bit. That they were never constrained by the toys, so that the writers would write characters that were different from the file cards produced by the marketing company. So I think Eagle is referred to Rob Buckingham in the comic, but his file card is Christopher on his file card. So it's little things like that, like the Kraken. What the marketing company envisaged for the Kraken was different for how he was portrayed in the comic. Same with like Red Jackal. They departed from the story there a little bit from the file card produced by the marketing company. But similarly on the art side of it, the Z-Force Trooper, he's drawn with the beret. He's drawn with the commando cap. You rarely see him with the cap and goggles and the hood up, which is what we have on the figure. So Gual's interpretation, they're all beret type soldiers. I just love the dynamics in this particular piece of artwork where they're running for cover. There's a sniper kind of bearing down on them, and these guys are trying to, they don't make it. Spoiler alert. But
red shirts.
Is it green shirts in the case of Z-Force? There's a lot of them.
Totally.
Is it you, Brian, that was putting these particular pages together with the kind of the coloring choices and so on?
Yeah. So like my role on is primarily photographer and art director of the whole book. I am contributing on the text content, but in a smaller way. I mean, Paddy is fulfilling most of the text with David MacDonald, who's writing up the comics side of it, and David is a micro publisher based in Ireland. He has a long working history with British comics, vintage comics, and with Rebellion specifically. Rebellion own the artwork now for Action Force and those stories. So you've got between David and Paddy, they pretty much cover the writing side of it, but I'm contributing a smaller amount. focusing on the continuity component within the comics. But my main role is designer and photographer.
Yeah, these pages to me look particularly satisfying. Sort of just seeing, I guess, what you're working with, as the raw image from the comic, and then sort of being able to clean it up and make the color choices to make the characters pop. It's perfect. I was going to say, I've got no prize for Eagle's name. Christopher and Rob. Clearly, this guy is called Christopher Robin. Winnie the Pooh. He's going to get, as an SAS man, he's going to get teased mercilessly. He's not going to call himself Christopher Robin. So take middle name, shorten it, Rob. Bingo.
There we go. The mystery is
no
solved.
prize awarded.
There we go. Thank you, Ben, for your comments.
Hello, Ben, Talking Joe alumni.
Yeah,
alumnus.
We've almost got a full house of alumni there. We just need Christopher McLeod to chime in and round it out. So
wakey, Chris. What time is it on the East Coast?
What is it? It's 5 hours behind.
7 a.m. maybe.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not, yeah.
On a Sunday. Come on.
And then just had this one as well up there, Moon Dancer there, so our Space Force man. A lot of international diversity in the characters as well, wasn't there? This chap is called Tariq El Shafei. We didn't just go for the English team. It was cribbed from across the world.
That's what.
Yeah, Steeler doesn't come from Pittsburgh in Z-Force. Steeler comes from Athens in Greece. He's a fellow countryman like me. Yes, I am Greek.
Any opportunity to do that accent.
And
this guy's got Destro's gun as well, hasn't he? It's
perfect ray gun. Come on.
That in that particular shot there, that's from the Space Force accessory pack that was available.
Okay.
So I don't know necessarily the exact. You might have come with the blue Uzi, but
maybe.
Again, another shout out to Dave Tree. Dave kind of gifted us a Space Force accessory pack for the dioramas in the book. So that's such a cool looking blaster. I just had to match it up with that figure, for that shot.
I have put it on record before that is my favorite handgun of the entire G.I. Joe line, I guess by implication the Pally Toy line as well. It's just such a finely molded piece. It's like if Han Solo's gun was a little bit more elegant, less of a kind of a blunderbuss and more of an arms dealer's weapon. It's just so fine. The tip on that gun is beautiful.
Yeah. And it doesn't take too much, particularly on the Destro's gun, which I think is probably a slightly more bendy plastic to knock the bend into that one. I think that blue plastic was a little bit more rigid.
Oh, really?
There we go. So Diorama. I've not done a jingle for this one, guys, but
well, you're gonna have to sing one live, Mark. I will not accept it. I will not stand for it. Perform.
I'm not a performing monkey. So we looked at this one. The red shadows, they're so amazing. The red shadows, and I think it sort of particularly resonates with the American G.I. Joe audience, that there's this sub team of villains who just have this perfect design to them that don't appear in the G.I. Joe didn't appear in the G.I. Joe world previously. So much in demand from our international collectors, pushing up Robo Skull prices.
Yeah.
Yeah, I occasionally will have a look on the eBay, see what they're going for, but maybe one day.
You just got to play the odds, Mark. Keep going to those church bric-a-bracs.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, my Robo Skull, I got it off eBay a few years back for £25 plus shipping. It was a great deal. I mean, it's not it's not 100% in great nick. I mean, the tips off the chin guns are missing, but other than that, I mean, it's pretty much there. It's all there. It's at the time I bought it, it was advertised that the wing mechanism was broken, that they wouldn't lock into flight mode. And for years, I thought that they was just busted. There was nothing I could do about it. But there's a big thread on one of the Action Force groups where myself and a couple of other RoboSkull owners all had the same issue. And on the thread, we're back and forth trying to figure out what the problem might be. And in my case, it was twofold. There's a special plastic flap inside that kind of locks onto the roll bar inside the RoboSkull, and that had come dislodged. So it was very simple to straighten that back up. And then the wings are actually, there is a left and a right wing for the RoboSkull. They were on backwards. So if the wings go on, if you flip the wings, it won't lock into flight mode because they're basically facing the wrong way. And when you try to put them into flight mode, the roll bar is now, that the ridges are like pointing the other direction from the flap that they're supposed to lock onto. So by swapping the wings around, problem solved. So if your RoboSkull won't lock into flight mode, swap the wings around and see if that works.
I hope really future Steve can remember that one day when I own a RoboSkull.
Yeah. Okay. This after the Red Shadows. This is probably my second favorite sub team. The SAS, all in black. Gotta love them with a tomahawk,
eagle hawk
sneaking in.
This is an eagle hawk.
Into there as well.
That's spotted.
You should have gotten hold of our buddy Chief. He's got the SAS Hawk and Blades, which he subjects to some pretty unspeakable acts, ziplining it down his children's playground equipment. But yeah, I mean, yeah, he could have loaned you the more authentic SAS vehicle, buddy.
Well, this vehicle actually is for Chopper. So Chopper never got his own helicopter. So I figured, when you see him in the comics, like he's usually flying like, it's like a Chinook or something like that, one of the bigger helicopters. So the next best thing that I had here was the Eagle Hawk, which was released as part of the aviation line. So I thought, well, look, it's a nice compromise. I'll work it in here. It's not Blades and the Hawk. Blades and the Hawk will get a feature in the book for sure. But for this kind of, to get the land, sea, and air components of SAS Force, I thought, well, we'll put Chopper in here. He'll look the part, and he needs to have his own vehicle.
Yeah, for sure. And with their adorable little life vests. Is the difference between the Eagle Hawk and the Tomahawk? Is it this blue shield? Is that windshield?
The canopy is different. I think as well, you can see those areas down below where just underneath the canopy. I think they're transparent on the Tomahawk as well, and the propeller blades I believe are much easier to remove on the Eagle Hawk. So they just pop in and out. There's no risk of them breaking.
And this driver of the Wolverine, who's this chap?
That's actually
Hunter.
It's well, I don't have a Hunter.
Oh, it's not
collection, but that's just your SAS Force attack trooper without all of his gas mask and gear. So he has that kind of masked face look. So I thought he'd be a good Hunter stand-in for this shot. But for anyone who's not familiar, Hunter is a repaint of, I think it's the Cobra Officer. Repainted up in the SAS colors, and he came with the Wolverine. I think in its first iteration, and then in Series 3 we got Rock and Roll. I think with the Wolverine. Then.
Ton Up, I think his name wasn't it?
Yes, Ton Up.
Yeah,
that's right.
Oh, good old Ton Up. Well, I mean, the item that will probably get some interest from most of our Yankee friends will be Stalker, peeking out of the Panther over there. But not the Stalker you're thinking of. It's Snake Eyes with some extra paint apps.
Yeah, with some just grey on his face. And we did get Snake Eyes for 2 appearances in Action Force, right?
Yeah, that's right. You have Snake Eyes makes 2 appearances. He's got a cameo in the story, The Great Cobra Robbery, which is a fantastic story, illustrated by Vanyo. And then he has his own story called Snake Hunt, not connected to the IDW run, where he's more of a Rambo type character. He's not so much of a ninja. He's got more commando, kind of making booby traps, and it's more a knife rather than a sword and a bow and arrow, which is really real John Rambo First Blood Part 2 stuff going on there, where he's picking off all these kind of cover troopers who are trying to hunt him down. But Stalker, the character Stalker that comes with the Panther, had one appearance in Operation.
Okay, just one.
And but he was unmasked. He was just a regular commando.
I was about to say that's another example of the artists kind of choosing to diverge from the toy's exact spec. It was indeed.
I wonder why we got Snake Eyes in the comics. It must surely have been that they were planning to release him as a solo figure at some point, unless they maybe got wind of the character in the G.I. Joe comic and assumed that he must also be in the Action Force comic. I guess we'll never know.
I think it was in the later Action Force or Battle Action Force comic books. So the kind of the unification of the two teams had happened by then, if I'm not mistaken.
I think when Marvel UK took over the contract for the Action Force stories, they kind of beat the Hasbro drum a lot more in their content. They were even reprinting, Marvel for USA stories as part of that. So that the Action Force continuity, there was a shift kind of more towards what Hasbro were putting out there, and subsequently, like Snake Eyes, as it got a lot more page time. But in Battle Action Force, he's often overlooked. He's a more of a periphery character, whereas Duke, Scarlet, Stalker, Gung Ho, and Roadblock, they all got a lot more page time. They even had their own individual stories. Where Snake Eyes, he's just this kind of cameo player, really, compared to everybody else.
Yeah, like in that Series 3 era of Battle Action Force, it was really Duke's book plus his team. Just as it probably in the Marvel UK era, it was kind of Flint's book and some team almost. Sort of a slightly different focus on the main characters maybe than the US book. You've got a lot of sand down here. Do you use like a dedicated sort of studio for your photography, and is it filled with sand all over the floor that you're finding for weeks on end afterwards?
Yeah, well, I have I do have a studio. I've got a dedicated photo studio. It's a small workspace, but I've got a good sized tabletop area where I can set up dioramas on that, with different backdrops and kind of lighting. But sand will be one of how I build my dioramas is that I have lots of different set pieces that I just reuse over and over again. So if we just break this shot down real quick, you can see there's these kind of rocks or mountains in the background. That's just insulation foam that I've kind of hacked up with a saw and a knife and just kind of painted it up. And then they can be used either as kind of like you see here, just rocks, or if I stand them upright, they can make like cliff faces. The sand is what you would buy for like, if you had a pet reptile, it's the sand that goes in a reptile cage, because it's really, really, really fine. So if you go and get like industrial sand, like from a builder's providers, it's way too coarse and it doesn't scale up with the small figures.
Unless they're on Brighton Beach, maybe.
Yeah, well, a beach sand is perfect. It's actually absolutely perfect. But unfortunately, I'm in a county that's landlocked, so I've no coast.
I mean, Brighton Beach has got pebbles rather than sand. So,
and then, of course, the water effect. I mean, that's just some blue paper, and then over the blue paper, there's cling film.
Nice.
One of the cling film would have been used by, I interviewed for the book there recently, Dave Barnacle. And Dave Barnacle is the designer who worked on the packaging for Action Force and the promotional material. And he would have art directed a lot of the photography. Now, Neville Chadwick was a photographer, but he would have worked with Dave. and it was Dave's responsibility to set up the dioramas for the individual shots. So he would have used things like bubble wrap and again cling film to create those kind of water effects. So I didn't know that at the time until after I'd spoken to him. But the techniques I'm using are actually very similar to what Dave would have used when he was setting up the shots back in the day.
Cool. Now I've used most of the photos that you sent across to me, so we've got a fair few. So we probably can't spend too long on each one, but we can sort of have a flick through and a brief discussion to give a flavour of some of the photography that we see in the book. So we're on to the
lovely
Q-Force section here, the underwater, and yeah, it's some great techniques to sort of convey that feeling of, you know, being under the sea that you've been able to create here, Brian.
So, I mean, this is all about lighting. There's no actual water in the shot. It's just how it's lit, and then trying to discreetly hide the stands that the vehicles are placed on. It's really just, you know, it's coat hanger.
Right.
Just take the wire off the coat hanger and just kind of bend it into shape. It's nice and rigid, so it's not going to. It'll hold the weight of the vehicles really, really well. And then it's just strategically placing that and lining up the camera so that you can't actually see the wire behind the vehicle. So it's a technique used by a lot of kind of contemporary toy photographers, but it's really effective to get that sense of kind of, you know, flight or you know, floating vehicles.
Oh, the racked focus is the one thing that really sells it, but the other is, how the hell did you get the kind of, I know they're not really bubbles, but whatever's coming off the back of, is it the sea line?
So off the sea line, so that is the cotton wool sort of dangled in the background.
Oh, so good.
You know, it's little things like that to get those kind of
scales so well. It's perfect. The right kind of density of cotton wool. Perfect.
Yeah, and that sea lion was a great vehicle. Must surely be the highlight of the Q-Force sub team.
You know, I do love the overstroke of the sea lion. I mean, they're neck and neck for me. The two of those vehicles.
And with the two, I don't know what you'd call them, but the two sort of mini vehicles that sit on the side of it and come off. So that's what's in the foreground here. Yeah, just great design, great playability. Okay, so now we've got the diver and the Kraken sneaking up behind him. That's quite. Am I imagining it? That's quite similar to a cover from Action Force, isn't it? There was one with the diver.
That's right. There's a cover illustrated by Robin Smith where you have the Q-Force commander, codename Leviathan, in the foreground. It looks like he's exploring some sort of, you know, ruined underwater city, with kind of Greek columns and stuff like that. And instead of the Kraken swimming towards him in the background, some just red shadow frogmen. But of course, they were never made as a toy. So the nearest thing I had to a red shadow frogman is a Kraken. And again, the Kraken's just as a wire gone into the peg hole at the base of his foot, and you can even see the wire sticking out the back there, but it just blends in with the rest of the seaweed.
Exactly. Yeah. Fantastic.
And in spite of the limitations of the 5 points of articulation, that is a very believable swimming posture that you've got Kraken into.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I love working with the 5 POA figures, and you know, it's the little small details in how the limbs were sculpted that kind of make these poses believable. I give the credit to the toy designers. Really, there's great material to work with there.
Here we go. There's a spotlight on the sea lion, and some reuse of the shark in the background.
That shark gets a lot of screen time.
Here we go. Spot the shark. There he is. This is just a great concept of you know, being able to peek under the waves and seeing what's happening on the surface as well. How did you achieve that?
So if you were to pan back, what you would see is that there's actually a sheet of glass for the surface of the water, and it's just standing up on two boxes left and right of the shot. Those boxes make it nice and dark down below, which means that I can control the lighting underneath to give it that sort of darker underwater feel. And then up on top, I've got a sheet of blue paper and then a sheet of cling film to kind of create the water effect. The foam coming off the sea skimmer, that's again just cotton wool worked in there. And because it's more exposed up above, I can put a different lighting solution on that to give it that daylight kind of feel. So lighting is a big part of how the mood of the shots are created.
That's amazing. And the obvious shortcut would be to just do these separately and paste them together in Photoshop or whatever. So it's incredible that this is all one practical photo. Okay, on to Space Force. Woo, out in space. Twinkling stars behind.
The star effect is something that I've got to give credit to George Lucas for that, or it could have been Stanley Kubrick. I'm not sure, but it's black paper with holes punched in it, and then you put a light behind the paper, and that's what creates the effect of the stars.
Oh,
yep,
yeah.
There is no camera in the world that can be exposed to capture stars and also a well-lit subject in the foreground. So forget about it. You need a strong light source to make those stars really pop out.
100%.
Excellent.
Oh yeah, that's geez, you're bringing back memories for me here. God.
How long ago did you take these snaps?
I can't. It's not that long ago. I mean, we're not going back years. We're maybe just going back, a few weeks. But we've been in such a frenzy of kind of creation as we're kind of assembling the book. That's I haven't even properly looked at that now in a long time. So it's kind of like, wow, it's great to kind of remember.
Yeah. I'm just some of the details of these figures from this era are just incredible. We've got the Action Force specific, is called the Triad Fighter, right?
Yes.
And these pods on both sides come out to be like sub vehicles. Is that?
That's
never had
correct.
One of these, so
they pop off, yeah, and then the wings kind of flip back on the main craft to point the opposite direction.
Perfect.
That's a fantastic vehicle, and that was something that I always wanted. As a kid, I didn't get one till I, many decades later before I got one.
And these space troopers down in the bottom left hand corner there, their sort of laser weapon that sort of just loops around and plugs into their back without a separate backpack. It's just another of just the little touches of the era that just feel so perfect. And this guy here, is he called like the commander or something, the space captain?
He's the Space Force commander, so his code name is Sky Raider.
And he's got this little hat that just pops on, fits perfectly. Just a lovely little tactile touch. He's got the blue Uzi, which presumably is the tooling from the G.I. Joe Snake Eyes, I would have thought.
Yes. He kind of represents Space Force in their non, I was going to say in their civvies, but civvies isn't the right term. But when they don't have to get all geared up for going into outer space, this is the kind of uniform they would wear. And you really see that kind of actioned by, I think Ron Turner does a lot of the Space Force artwork in the stories. So they're all the characters have this kind of, peaked cap and kind of more casual gear when they're inside the space station. But when they have to go outside, for a spacewalk or whatever, they're in a completely different looking, space outfit, which doesn't look like any of the toys.
And this
but it certainly is sci-fi of a certain vintage, which is just so delicious. Whether it's in the comic book arts or photography like this, it's very like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Before I pass out and fall asleep. all the early cool like space station stuff and on board the ship stuff.
Quite in keeping with like Thunderbird's aesthetic or Dan Dare as a contemporary, that kind of thing. And the sort of the art style was sort of leaning towards that sort of sci-fi aesthetic was generally that kind of slightly cleaner, futuristic-y kind of style, rather than the grim and
the lived-in world, George Lucas.
Yeah, exactly.
Dinged up Millennium Falcon. But credit where credit's due, Brian. I know you're very modest and say that the figures gave you so much and the vehicles gave you so much, but like, this is inspired stuff, man. Really well done.
Oh, thank you. Cheers, Steve.
Okay, we've got a shout out, a hello there. Hi, right back to you. Thanks for joining the stream. You know, feel free to chime in with your comments as we're going along. What's the name of this guy on the right? You don't see him cropping up so much. I never had this guy when I was a kid.
So this is the Space Force engineer, codename Kiwi, and just a shout out to another Irish collector, Martin McCanny, who loaned me Kiwi for to photograph for the book. So he comes with a number of kind of detachable accessories. So Kiwi actually is missing a hand, so he's got this cyborg hand. And then he can attach different tools to the hand, which he can use for his various kind of repairs and maintenance work on the Space Force vehicles. But
so that's
Kiwi,
predating the Bats,
Battle Android Trooper,
predating Stormforce as well, that followed on from Action Force in the pages of Battle, who's the lead hero in that had an accident where he lost his arm and then was fitted with a number of guns and whatnot that he could fit on his arm instead.
Yes. Kiwi does he gets one comic appearance where he helps Moondancer, who's in a spot of bother. He has to prove his innocence for the destruction of a triad fighter, and Kiwi's the only one who believes him and helps him out, and he gets to use his cybernetic hand to bash a few red shadows over the head.
Perfect. So we've got now a sort of segueing from space into a futuristic red shadow theme here. The the laboratory of the Muton. Yeah, fantastic.
The Greeblies scale so well. Honestly, every little bit of mise en scène that you've selected is like perfect.
I'm just picking up for the first time on this one as well. This tube running along the bottom with the steam pouring out, which is my eye fooling me, and is of course must be cotton wool, surely.
Amazing.
It's cotton wool again. I was shooting probably on maybe a 3-second exposure, and while the shutter's open, I'm just kind of blowing on the cotton wool, and it.
Oh wow!
So when it moves about, it gives you that kind of translucent feel, which looks like steam.
Perfect.
But I've always been fascinated by there's a few stories where there's this kind of reference made to the Baron's lab. So, for example, like when Red Jackal is first created, he's created in a lab. The Kraken is created in a lab. But we never get to see much about the creation of Muton. So I've only got one complete Muton figure. And Muton is this kind of cyborg. He's supposed to Red Shadow's equivalent of a bat, modeled off using a lot of the deep sea diver tooling. So this was to try and envisage how Muton is created, but also using the incomplete Muton figures in my collection. So I kind of rigged up these. They look like kind of beds or trolleys that the incomplete Muton figures are sitting in, and they're just going to they're going to get kitted up for battle once they get their kind of blood injected into them.
Good grief.
Terrific color choice. That purple was never part of the Red Shadow color palette, but man, does it work.
But they really pop off from that, and I tried to get a lot of color into my shots, to make them as colorful as possible.
Yeah, just having a lot of contrast, making that red pop.
What are those two panels? Sorry, I know you want to move on, Mark, but I have to know because they're so finely detailed. Is that a dedicated sticker?
Oh, so those two computer consoles, they're actually from a modern era kind of accessory kit. It's like a control room piece. So it's actually Paddy. These are out of Paddy's collection, and he gave me a loan of them. So they just look like really great little computer consoles. Nice little touches.
Oh yeah.
And like the vintage toys don't look out of place next to some of these kind of more modern fixtures. And what I try to keep it as vintage as possible. These little pieces in here are kind of nice little touches, I think. And
probably helped by the 5 POA presentation, because if we were seeing rivets and screw holes,
yes,
it would actually date these figures a lot more than them being like basically flush. Their presentation is very neat and timeless.
Absolutely. And you've nailed it there, Steve. It's the fact that there aren't those joints and screw holes in there that just create a more authentic illusion with the figures.
Well, I can't claim that point as me making it for the first time, but yeah, it pleases me to present it here. That is the age-old argument, isn't it? It's you either were a fan of 5 POA for that neatness of design, or you're a fan of,
Yes.
There we go. There you go. You can wave your man.
Oh yeah, looking great.
How's the logo on? Bit of rub on the logo. Have we lost? Oh, sorry. Did I do that or no?
Oh, Steve has gone quiet there.
Ha! I'm back. I don't know. I must have tapped something. No, I did the hydrogen peroxide bleaching trick on him because he was knackered. I got him for a song. But it's nice to have a beta Storm Shadow, because this is such an eggshell kind of action figure that you have to be precious with, the sort of minty specimens. So it's nice to have one that you can actually play with reckless abandon. There you go. Hence the rub. I feel no pain now.
At first, I thought that Steve was talking about the glass viewing screens, which
the takeaway Tupperwares.
I heard this as the story, but it's a great story.
Brilliant.
Takeaway lids, fantastic. Yeah, if I was in your position, Brian, I would be constantly getting grief from my family of saying, "Why are you trying to hold on to this rubbish? You can't possibly want that."
Well, they know me really well at home, because I recycle a lot of stuff. Like, most of my props are made from recycled waste, and they'll see me looking at something, knowing that the cogs are going, and they say, "Don't throw that out. He's got an idea for that."
Perfect. Okay, this is a great one, sort of spotlighting everyone's favorite. Great action.
But I mean,
this is a scene from a comic, because I'm thinking of Desert Strike.
Yes,
and that obviously involved a Harrier. Was there a Roboskull at some point? Z-Force was pitted up against it.
There's another Z-Force story which happens, it's obviously much later, and we have the Series 3 Red Wolf. So it's Cobra now at this point. It's a Cobra Roboskull attacking a Z-Force team. Again, it's in a desert, but it's more of a daytime strike. But to really get the most out of those kind of lighting effects and with the explosions, it's nice to do it in the dark and set it up for night, so everything illuminates really, really nicely. But it's definitely inspired by that beautiful John Cooper cover where Red Wolf is kind of swooping down over the Z-Force troops and is making mincemeat of them, basically.
Hang in there, Steeler, my fellow countryman.
Yeah, because I like the way as well, and they sort of transitioned from Series 2 into Series 3. They had Wild Weasel be the pilot for the Red Skull as well, didn't they? I don't think that he was ever included as a figure, but just a nice melding.
Hang on, wasn't the Roboskull in later series packaged with Wild Weasel? I think there might have been a switch over.
Really?
Do
you think there might? Okay.
Yeah, I think there was. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was never sure whether he actually accompanied it or not, but if he did, that makes
Paddy, where are you, buddy? Did anyone actually explain his absence? Didn't he get knocked on his ass by his vaccination?
He actually had to attend a dinner party at the Colombian embassy. He's invited directly by the ambassador. So
Pablo Escobar.
you can't actually say no when you get that invitation.
No.
So I hope they're breaking out the Ferrero Rocher and really spoiling him at the moment.
The Ferrero Rocher.
You're spoiling it, yeah.
Very good.
So, here we go. Some more Z-Force spotlighting Steeler. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Great.
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, the Steeler and the
Apocalypse.
Mobat or the Z-Force battle tank are, I mean, great vehicle, great figure. I'm a Z-Force were always my favorite as a kid. I love the infantry side of it. You see the Z-Force radio operator on the far right-hand side there, my first ever Action Force figure.
Uh-huh.
Although I don't have any of my childhood figures anymore. They were,
Oh, no.
my parents threw everything out when I went off to college. So when I came back from college, everything was gone. So I've been spending most of my adult life recollecting all that stuff. Same as all the other collectors out there.
I was fortunate enough to be the inheritor of someone's childhood collection. I was working with a guy who we got into conversation, and I said I was a huge G.I. Joe fan. He was like, G.I. Joe? No, buddy. I need to give you some of the real stuff. So he let me have his collection of figures, and amongst them was Captain Campbell over there, one of my favorites. Yep.
Nice.
That and the SAS Commander. Amazing.
Here we go. So a big lineup, and we've got the. Is it ATC? Am I getting my initials mixed up?
The Z-Force ATC, the battle tank, and the Z-Force Jeeps. The Z-Force lineup is actually probably one of the biggest lineups. So it was really difficult to do a team photo without it getting. It was just getting too busy, and if the shot gets too busy, then you start to lose some of the impact. So I had to take a few pieces out, and kind of restore. This took quite a while to set up because it was so complex. But I love the Z-Force Jeep so much, I had to put two of them in there.
Yeah, let's lose quarrel, but stick in another Jeep. Okay, next segment we were going to do is picking some of our favorite covers. So I've prepared something for us for that. Here we go.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Okay, so favorite covers. Here we go. This was a selection of some of Brian and Paddy, myself and Steve. So a mixture in there. I think a couple of us picked this.
Everybody loves a wraparound.
Look at that! Yes, this is. I can remember this cover as a kid. It's a great story. London in peril, and obviously you can see Cobra attacks London, and this is illustrated by Eric Bradbury, one of my favorite contributors to the Action Force, art universe. And Eric didn't do a lot of strips. He did a couple of strips, but he did a lot of covers as well. And this is a beautiful piece. I mean, you've got Destro right up in the foreground. You've got the Night Attack Jeep behind him, and then when you flip around to the back cover, you've got the Fangs, the Robo Skull, devastating London from the air. You've got his tanks on the ground, and you've even got a water moccasin, out on the Thames there.
Oh,
It's
yes.
I mean, it really is a superb action-packed cover.
It really, really is. It's probably my favourite of the era as well. And I've got it's not the greatest resolution there, but there's the original art to that. Not in my own collection. I would dearly love it to be, but but there we go. So clearly a really big oversized board that he would have been working on to produce that.
That's
image.
Amazing. That is amazing. God, I'd love to.
Zartan at his most dreadnocky, I must say.
Yeah,
he looks like a real thug.
Yeah.
In that Action Force era, but he was often had that quite a sort of dirtied up, sort of real thuggy kind of look to him.
It's even got a bit of 5 o'clock shadow if my eyes aren't playing tricks. Terrific, yeah. Like that.
Cool. So then we've got the second wraparound from the London in Peril story. This the story was, my real favourite at the time, sort of living in London, or growing up in the suburbs of London, and often going up to the centre of London. It was just blew my tiny little mind to see, my real, world of where I was living, sort of intersecting with the story, and seeing these real life landmarks being overtaken by Cobra. Incredible stuff.
This is lovely. Again, but the mighty John Cooper illustrated this spread. I mean, this is fantastic. At this point, obviously, London has now been captured by Cobra, and they're firmly in control of the situation.
Absolutely are.
Guys, I have to step away from the camera just for about 60 seconds. So if you guys want to keep going.
He's that quick, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll be back in 60 seconds. Thank you.
There. Gone for 60 seconds.
All right, it's just you and me, Mark. Film. I know.
We had
got an interesting request in the chats. I don't know if you want to bring that one up.
Well, yeah, we had a request here. Request: can you show the full design of the T-shirt you're wearing standing full screen?
Why bother with the T-shirt? Why don't I just take my top off, John Lover One?
This what I've got is. Here we go.
Are we doing this? This is bizarre.
I'm looking at my T-shirt. Gorillas. There we go.
I don't know if I want to cave to that.
I'm gonna. Show
not afraid to show off your T-shirt.
I'm proud of my T-shirt, but I'm not showing off anything else of my body. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
So that was John Cooper banner.
I love this artwork, except whose decision was it to include very, very superimposed Cobra Commander? He's not actually on the artwork. He's just, I don't know. He's selling the back of the book.
Yeah, because I mean, it makes sense, because if he wasn't there, that sort of bottom left-hand corner, looking purely at the back page on its own, there'd probably be just that, gap on that bottom left-hand corner space. But maybe
something I want to point out about these covers is how they play into a different style entirely, which also plays into the way the Palitoy action figures were marketed in the UK. And that's very much like, this is a news broadcast, like, boom, headlines, Cobra's victory parade, read, London in peril inside. And if you are familiar with the old commercials, it was a newscaster back in the day, basically suspending the disbelief of the viewer that, like, oh, Baron Ironblood's forces are marching on the world. We need to put together a team of dedicated individuals to stop him. The Z-Force commands the land legions, and the SAS Force fight on land, sea, and air, and in space. So it was this great approach, which really situated this as a real situation. It's like, pinch me, is this a real news broadcast? So in the same vein, these comic book covers had some of that, like, read all about it. Bam.
Yeah.
Cobra takes over the world. Yeah.
Very much of the era, you would be getting logos, slogans saying what's inside. Modern comics are far more the image, the logo at the top, without, the surrounding sort of text.
Sure.
What is the
the distinction that I would make is that, like, across the pond, once again, G.I. Joe was not selling comics like this. Their approach was not the suspension of disbelief, mixing of the real world into a toy commercial with, the stuffy old news anchorman and his papers, like, oh, yeah. So this is, I love it. It's great. It's so distinct, and it feels like the comic book covers retain that. But I know what you're saying, Mark, that it was of its time, that they have a lot of text and design elements
for sure.
But this seems to do both. It's a terrific standalone artwork.
See something on your wall behind you there, Mark. Is that a John Cooper piece?
This one, yeah. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I do. This made a big impact on me, and I have actually commissioned a John Cooper piece as well. So yeah. So the next one was going to be this Cobra Destroys Big Ben explosion. Another one that made a massive impact on me, sort of just firmly fused into my old brain box. Incredible. There we go, John Cooper. Just such a explosive, dynamic image there.
That is beautiful. What actually is unusual about this for John Cooper is that he has this more traditional kind of art style where he doesn't do very sort of dynamic angles with the illustration. But for this cover here, he has this kind of, the viewpoints kind of down below looking up, which obviously he has to do that to be able to get the tower in. But it's a slightly different approach from how he would normally tackle some of the scenes. So this is actually really nice and slightly different piece of John Cooper artwork.
Yeah, the John Cooper's art sort of completely, embodying, defining this era of Action Force as well. He did so much of it, and so that so many of the big headline events that were covered in the stories. And this next one here is something that I had commissioned specifically. I'm trying to find the words.
Is he the culprit? Is that Firefly?
There we go.
Making his getaway.
It's Firefly. So this is a commission that he did for me at the time of the Rollout Roll Call convention that he attended. It was my first big sort of private commission that I'd ever done. Completely because of that Duke cover, being such a significant part of my memories of the Action Force G.I. Joe brand. I wanted to try and recreate that, and he did a sensational job. Just truly
that Firefly, he's always running away from stuff.
That's amazing. The detail on the clock face is it's just
the clock face, the shattering glass, the flying debris as it's coming away, as exploding. It's
brilliant.
It's really special.
I mean, Robert's one of the great artists in the G.I. Joe universe. In terms of contemporary artists, Robert and Nito Diaz would be two of my favorites in there. So,
yeah, he's one of the greats of the modern era. Here we go. There's Duke being chased by not just one, but two Red Skulls. Robo Skulls.
Red Skull's that other guy, Mark.
Yeah, that's right. No, wrong one. Duke, giving it away. Robin Smith here, who actually I think went on to do some work on European Mission / Action Force Monthly as well. So continuing that lineage. But yeah, great dynamic shot. Hand. I was going to do that. Hand going all the way into the foreground. A nice bit of foreshortening. What's up next? We've got Roadblock. Yeah, one of the big characters of the era. Got a lot of got some solo stories. Spotlighted in a way that
this is super story. This is actually it's called The Scrapyard, and Roadblock is leading a team of Action Force ATCs. I think there's 3 or 4 ATCs, and they're trying to chase scrap iron across this kind of North African location. And of course, scrap iron is basically leaving it like a scrapyard with bits of Action Force vehicles left blown up all over the place. And in this front cover here, We have there's a train. The driver's been taken out. Scrap Barnes kind of set it on a collision course for some small town, and Roadblock has got to literally stop the runaway train. While it was illustrated by Jeff Campion, the cover was done by Robin Smith, and Robin Smith didn't do any of the actual comic panels or the strips in battle.
Okay.
So, but he did contribute a lot of front covers for Action Force, and he gets overlooked. You know, people talk about John Cooper and they talk about Vanyo quite a bit, but Robin Smith contributed so much in terms of front cover artwork. He doesn't always get the kudos he deserves. And this is a beautiful cover. You know, he's got his Ma Deuce mounted up on top of the ATC, which has its own kind of, you know, cannon loaded up there, but the Ma Deuce is a much more powerful weapon for Roadblock, and you can see he just shoots the tracks out from under the train to derail it before it hits the town.
May I just highlight Robin's accuracy to the toy sculpt on the Mardus? Because the toy sculpt is its own unique thing. It's not accurate to the real world weapon, strictly speaking, but he has absolute fidelity to the plastic, and that, as a toy fan, really excites me.
That's brilliant.
Well done.
And in this era, the you know, because we didn't have the internet and that kind of thing, the artist would often be given the figure either you know, to keep or as a collection belonging to the studio for the duration of the project to actually use as reference. So they would sometimes have a big parcel arrive with the latest, you know, figures to actually use as their in-person reference.
Pays to be there, nephew. Does anyone know if the Mardus can plug into the top of the ATC like that? Probably not, hey?
No, there's obvious kind of plug holes on it there. So I don't think we can actually plug it in. You know, bit of blue tack. No.
Yeah, that's what we did as kids. Shout out to Anything Joe's. Welcome to the party. Is that Greg out there? Anyway, there he is. Another fellow G.I. Joe podcaster and YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us.
Well, you know, a lot of people are commenting that they haven't seen, you know, a lot of these artworks before, but these are some of these covers are going to be reproduced in the book. So it's again, we've got the licensed artwork from Rebellion. We've got over 100 images. Some of them are from covers, some of them are internal panels that are going to be used to kind of throughout the book, mainly with the data files, but also to illustrate some of the, you know, the narrative around the comics history and the artists themselves. So there will be a lot of comic book artwork reproduced in our book.
Yeah, I was going to say as well that this Robin Smith cover did throw me at first, because I thought that was a Jeff Campion story, because I had some of the original art to that story, but I sold it simply because it was so big that I didn't have anywhere to properly, you know, keep it in my collection, because it was like double you know spread, so it's like, you know, two pages, and each page themselves are oversized, so it's bigger than A3, so the individual, you know, double page spread is bigger than A2, so it's like huge. So just to have logistically somewhere to keep it in your collection, this can be a bit tricky. Next up, we've got Vanyo versus Cobra Commander. Vanyo drawing Snowdrop versus Cobra Commander on the front cover there. And the interesting one for this one is that it was cribbed from an interior page. So this illustration there on the right of Snowdrop clocking Cobra Commander is this same
something you don't see often, not often at all.
But actually, they've sort of probably someone internal at the studio has sort of you know, probably created a stat of this image and then filled in the blanks to be able to square off the bottom of Cobra Commander's outfit, I would have thought.
it's testament to the detail of the Vanyo brothers' artwork that you could actually take one of their small panels and turn it into the front cover, because it was like we talked about Vanyo earlier, likening to say the Kennedy. They were very precise, very detailed, very accurate, and that level of kind of, I suppose, the quality of that artwork lent itself really well that you could take that small panel, blow it up, and get a front cover image out of it. It's dynamic, it's action-packed, and I imagine that when you're up against it with a deadline to go to press, maybe there isn't time there to commission a unique cover piece. So what's the next best thing you're going to do? Go to Vanyo's artwork, grab a panel, boom, there you go.
To my mind, I think that's the only time I've ever seen Mirror Face Cobra Commander's visage shattered, like cracked.
Mm-hmm.
That's some pretty dynamic stuff. Wow. Laddie.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's just fantastic. The way Snow Job is kind of looming over, Cobra Commander when he's on the ground, the way he drags him out of the snow. Yeah. It's just fantastic artwork there.
It's
high drama.
It's too good to be relegated to to the scrap pile. We need to this art.
Hold it up to the light, my friends.
Needs to be spotlighted. It is amongst the very best of the published work, on the G.I. Joe Action Force IP. It's incredible. Okay, this is one that you wanted.
Shout out to the colouring department there, because again, these covers would have been supplied as black and white art, and we didn't mention it there when you showed up the black and white Eric Bradbury cover. There's a colouring department, at IPC whose job would have been to paint up the colour plates to bring these to life. So that's shout out to those guys, that they did super work.
So this was one that you picked out as a favourite, Steve.
Not only was Operation Snakebite my introduction to Action Force, it was my introduction to G.I. Joe characters in print, period. Mm-hmm. And left an indelible impression on how Zartan ideally should be characterized for me. He is a man of action, few words. He's somewhat superhuman. He's kind of like a swamp creature. You'll notice he doesn't have any dive gear whatsoever, but he is strangling a Action Force frogman. Incidentally, for those of you who don't know, all Action Force frogmen of this era were in Torpedo's wetsuit. So Torpedo, the action figure, could be used as a character class instead of, an actual character. You could put Recondo in Torpedo's gear, essentially, and he'd be ready to dive, as he was in this issue. But this is just a nondescript Action Force trainee in that gear, and Zartan is squeezing the life out of him. He's on a top secret mission to invade Action Force's jungle training camps run by Duke and patrolled by whales. He gets up to all sorts of mischief in this arc, and it really made me fall in love with the idea of Zartan as this really, really freaky swamp-dwelling mystery man. And ever since, I must say, I've treated his later characterization with some disappointment, because the mystery has been taken out, and he's got a biker gang and grape soda and chocolate-covered donuts, and in one continuity, he's got a dreadlocked daughter. I prefer the purity of Zartan just being this. He's got blank eyes. You should not be able to see his pupils. That's the kind of distance you should have from his characterization. You can't. There's not a human being in there.
He never had.
As I say, an indelible impression on me, and I think that's how I like to regard not only Zartan's character, but how my G.I. Joe mythology is put together on this bedrock. So that's why, long story short, that's why this cover really, really gets me.
But you're totally speaking my language there, Steve, because that's exactly how I remember. Sorry, he was a creepy character.
You are seeing murder. There is murder playing out on this cover.
Scary. And what makes him scary is that mystery. that he's a loner. He doesn't have much to say. You know very little about him, and those blank eyes. Creepy character.
Excellent, excellent.
Removable
Okay,
face.
so this is a bit of a cheat. I don't. Was it Brian? Was it you or Paddy who selected this one?
This is one of Paddy's favorite covers.
Okay.
And obviously it's from an era, beyond where we're going with this book. But I will say, if Action Force, the Battle Years, comes to happen, there will be Action Force, the Marvel Years.
Looking forward to that.
Mr. Tasty.
It's the cover that inspired a jingle.
Snack attacker. Chief and Chris, like Han Solo and Chewbacca, are travelling through hyperspace to get some snacks. Snack attacker.
There we go. Blast from the past of
Brilliant.
What's our jingle count up to by now? I think we've reached Chief's quota.
Here we go. I have to get a snack now. It's just like a Pavlovian response. Yeah.
Damn you, Mark. You didn't prep me for this. We've got some snack envy now, haven't we, Brian?
Yeah. Since taking over Talking Joe, I've seen some of the sort of old emails from Chief and whatnot. And the biggest point of discussion about prepping a guest for appearance on Talking Joe under Chief's snack attack era was what was the snack for the show. Never mind the rest of the content. Ping pong. What are you eating? What are you gonna have as your snack?
There's Chief's priorities for you. Love you, buddy.
There we go. What was I up to next? So
Mr. Tasty, would you say the closest real equivalent would be Wimpy of the day?
That's what it put
the
me
UK
in.
Wimpy bar.
Yeah. The Wimpy. That's the Milky Bar.
Sorry, whatever, man. Hey, man, I'm the African kid here. Yeah.
So I think the closest equivalent to this was probably the Wimpy brand. So that was going to move on to some original art. So this is a bit that I think Brian has been looking forward to, and I was going to have to play the jingle for this. Here we go.
Sketchbook, here's my sketchbook. I can show it to you if you wanna have a look. Sketchbook, here's my sketchbook. And now I will stop this song.
Okay, sketchbook time. It's not technically sketchbook, but it's original art. So this one is this Paddy's or
this is Paddy's?
Yeah,
this is Paddy's. And a quick story about this: we were doing a review of this particular story. The title of the story escapes me, but it focuses on Helix, silent option, Helix. Paddy was making a joke on the Full Force that would be great if you could commission Nito Diaz to do a picture of Nito Helix cutting the Mickey off a Cobra Trooper. And Nito replied with a tweet that he would do that. So so Paddy commissioned Nito, and sure enough, here is the magnificent piece of artwork. It's obviously kind of post amputation. We can see bits off the knife there.
There we go.
Not looking good for the Cobra Trooper, I have to say.
There we go. It's great, and the shading that he's employed is really nice. It's very subtle, sort of shading in the blacks. It's great. You can sort of see the thought process as the artist, how he would have laid down his pencils, ready for it to be inked. 2019 there. I included here a Facebook exchange about this edition, which I just thought was hilarious. So it was They said it couldn't be done, but then I commissioned current IDW artist Nitho Diaz to draw my favourite female Joe character, Helix, threatening to castrate a Cobra Trooper. Dreams can come true, lads. And then someone asked, where's his severed Mickey? Hidden between his legs. It's scarier when you don't show the shark. Fantastic.
Shout out Jake Witherspoon. He was a guest on G.I. Joe Book once upon a time. Hello, Jake.
Lovely. Next up, here we go. It's one of my pages, Battle Action Force 571. So as I mentioned, love that London in Peril storyline. And I've got the privilege of having 2 of the original boards. So you can see they're pretty huge. Let me do a solo.
Jeez.
Pretty huge. All of the lettering is sort of pasted on over the top of the art, and beginning to fade a little bit in places, but it's just great to see this. And this is done on like a very firm, hard art board, which was sort of more common back in the day. So it's got a bit of a wobble board
heft
to it. So it's not the standard kind of thicker paper that would often be used today, but just lovely to see. And you can sometimes in the actually always for this era, because the reproduction was on this very rough paper with fairly kind of cheap production values in terms of getting it on the page. A lot of the detail would be lost, so you can definitely see a lot more detail in the original art than necessarily can be made out on the actual printed page. It's sort of just fascinating to be able to see the fine details, and sometimes you might even be able to see, because these speech bubbles have faded somewhat, you can sometimes see where little corrections have been made, so that the word has been changed, or the whiteout has been used to create the tail of the speech bubble to point it towards the character that's speaking, and so on. So that was my first page there. That's got the cobras attacking, and the Joe's against them, and then the second page is a scene
signature on there too. That's brilliant.
Yeah. The second one there is a scene from Trafalgar Square. So again, sort of just fascinating to see the cobras occupying these real world spaces. So there you can make out Nelson's column. The lion statue. This is one of the museums or the galleries in Trafalgar Square. It's great, and also the cobra plotting and story as well. Theme. Gorski's a dead man. He doesn't realise it. There's often as much infighting in Cobra as there is between Action Force and Cobra themselves.
Letterer must have loved how many S's he had to include with Cobra Commander's speech.
That's it.
Oh man,
the Cobra Commander's speech pattern. It was all of the S's like a snake.
Yeah.
Something that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say it's a great characteristic of, because obviously Cobra Commander is Baron Ironblood, who is a complete nut job. Like, he's totally insane. So it's perfectly normal that he would have this kind of affected voice where he would hiss out his S's. It's brilliant.
The man has disappeared into his role as Cobra Commander. Welcome to the party, Sarge.
Your buds.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, there we go.
Maggot.
Yeah, itty bitty ditty back.
Yes.
What's up next?
While I was concurrently reading Battle Action Force and the current IDW G.I. Joe books, all of a sudden I started regarding the onomatopoeia, the sound effects in the Joe book with a little bit of contempt, because I was seeing in the Battle Action Force books how you can actually get away with not never having rat-a-tat-a-tat or blam or any, it's just not evident, but your mind makes the sound effects. Maybe it's just because we're comic book readers and we're tuned to do that. But it made me suddenly think, you're losing so much art real estate by pasting this typeset over what some artist has done. I could just do without it, to be honest. When I see a muzzle flash, my mind is doing the rat-a-tat-a-tat.
But even you look at this is a quick sketch here, and
this is a
debris.
prelim.
You just hear the crumbling of the tower.
Yep. Be a shame if they put crumble and boom and swoosh and thwip as I don't know. Is Scarlett taking a shot? Possibly.
Yeah, I don't know how her crossbow would fare against a skull, to be honest.
Nope. Yeah. Throw a ninja star. Why not?
Or a ninja star, indeed.
Do something. A garrote.
So this is John Cooper. It's a prelim for a commission that he did for me in 2014, which I think was the year before he passed away, which I think he was about 74, something like that. So pretty much retired from art, and I was able to get sort of fairly tangentially his contact details. I've found another a collector who'd commissioned him on Comic Art Fans, and inquired how he'd gone about that and how he'd contacted me. So he was able to put me in contact with him, and very fortunate to be in a position to commission him for a piece. And I essentially asked for broad sweeps of my favorite, a handful of my favorite Action Force characters, from the era, Duke, and some of the others, and it to be connected to London in Peril, including Big Ben being destroyed by a robo skull. So those kind of the main beats, and then leaving it up to him and just providing with plenty of reference so that he could include anything that he saw fit to. So that was the original rough, and then this was the final piece. So that's
In the rough, it looked like Cobra Commander was among the dead. I see he's lost him.
I see that. Yeah. I get it's probably just leaving out the details of a trooper, to be fair. But
right, no, of course. That would be a major coup if they got the old snake in the end.
I mean, that's a lovely thing to have in your collection, Mark. Like one of the first things we did when we were working, doing the preparation work for Total Action Force, was to build out a spreadsheet of all the different artists and writers. Look at that. That's magnificent. Look at that. And unfortunately, so many of those great talents are lost, that they're passed on now. And obviously John is one of them. So the fact that you got to get in touch with them and commission those pieces, that really is something special. And they're smashing pieces to have in your collection.
Absolutely, yeah. My brother was actually in the process of commissioning him for a companion piece to this one, which was going to be, I think, a scene more focused on some of the Cobra characters in Trafalgar Square, but unfortunately that was never completed, so we won't get to see that one. But lovely to have this one of a kind piece in my collection, sort of recreating a moment from pretty much my favorite story of all time. So
yes.
There we go. That was the end of the art spotlight, and we're drawing to an end. But I had one last thing to finish off on, which was an Innuendo talking Action Force special. And if we got new segments, you know what that means, kids.
This is how the story goes. Attention,
At this moment, you are now listening to
Talking Innuendo.
If you are offended by words like
sucking, flesh wound, willy, Pete, balls, crystal balls, hypno shield,
whatever, take the tape out now. This is not a pop album. And by the way, suck my
grandmother's brick in a Prada handbag. Okay,
love it.
We're back in the room. So if you're not a regular listener to Talking Joe, then just to familiarise yourself with this segment, Innuendo is the part of the show where I will talk about some of the code names and names from the G.I. Joe, and in this case Action Force series, which when said and interpreted with the right kind of mind, which is mostly my kind of immature juvenile mind, they might sound a little bit dirty. So the idea is, can I read through a list without making my guests titter? That's right, titter. Or hopefully even guffaw.
Oh yeah, there's going to be plenty of guffaws and titters for sure. Let's do this.
No, Brian, let's not do this. You know, keep it together, buddy. We're gonna get a perfect score. What is it? We got 5.
Doody? Do these? Doodies?
Oh, we've lost it already. No.
Okay, right.
Into that Zen-like mind.
Okay.
And
in the zone. And up again, yeah? Okay. You ready? Okay. Jammer. Codename Quickfire. Commando. The Cosmic Cruiser. Z-Force's Shaft. Codename Beaver.
All right, that was me. That was on me.
Okay, first one down. Let's see if we can get Brian on these last two. Okay, Codename Beaver. Baron Ironblood's big helmet.
What? You didn't go for Hot Jets, my absolute favorite.
Okay. Oh dear. There we go. And just
what context
to
did you find Baron Ironblood's big helmet? Is that just from the crevasse of your? All right.
That's the way my mind works.
Beaver.
Here we go. And here's a beaver shot to finish off the show.
Yes.
Love me some Canadian beaver.
Dearie me. So there we go. I've got some comments that have come in. So okay. Yeah, I was trying to go for Action Force specific names, which was why I didn't sort of recycle anything. But here we go. You know,
very good, Stephen.
Could definitely go for a Flash.
Oh,
and yeah, Sergeant Slaughter's Slaughterhouse. Yeah, he got the beaver. So there we go. That's nice.
Another fantastic piece of John Cooper artwork right there. That's a tiny panel, and he's packed in so much detail into that. That's one of my favorite, small John Cooper pieces.
Cool. And then for those people who maybe join the show midway through, let's while we're wrapping up, let's remind people to head on over to the KickStarter page. Here we go. Action Force: The Battle Years. Do a Google search if you don't have the URL, which should be in the various links for this. Head on over and click on into the back this project. Anything to add, Brian, about the book? Maybe remind people with the sort of your elevator pitch of why they need to get the book and back the project.
Well, it's going to be 176 pages. It's going to be a hardback book. It's going to be slightly oversized. If you've bought, Total Hacks or Total Retaliation in the past, it'll be a similar size, but a lot more pages. And then with that large hardback cover, perfect binding on it. It's really, in terms of what's in the book, it's all about the toys. but it's also about the creation of Action Force, the physical product and the mythology around those figures, and then looking specifically at those creators, the writers, the artists, the toy designers, the engineers, and you know, if you're an Action Force fan, if you've got interest in that kind of in the history of Action Force, if you want to see some of that lovely, amazing comic artwork reprinted for the first time in decades since it was first printed, pledge on the campaign. Let's hit that minimum goal. Got a few days left. We're well on our way there, and just let's get this over the line, and then if we can put a big final push on, let's start unlocking some of those stretch goals. And definitely a big favorite for me is going to be to get the Special Weapons Force team included in that book. That's our very first stretch goal, and that's going to be a lot of fantastic photography, brilliant data files written by Paddy, inspired by what we know about Special Weapons Force and the people who created it as well. So it's a great book to have in your collections. A lot of the viewers out there may have the Blood for the Baron book, which is again super book, which is it's got a big focus on the figures, the accessories, and if you want to complete your collection, that's a great book. But if you want to know more about the story, like a real detailed story of Action Force, our book is the one to go to. If you want to see those toys like you've never seen them before, our book is a project to back for sure.
Excellent. And aside from the KickStarter link, if people want to find you, Brian, where should they head on over to?
Best place to find me is on Instagram, instagram.com/Brian the Hick. That's my handle on, as you can see my handle on the chat here too. And you get to see some of my Action Force images in there, and also some of my Kenner Star Wars images as well. So lots of vintage toy photography over there. And if you want to do a real deep dive on my Instagram feed, you'll even see some of my mask photography in there as well.
Excellent. And Steve, if people want to find out more about you and your stuff, what's the best place to go to?
G.I. Joburg everywhere. That's G.I. Joburg, and that's Joburg, not Joeburg. Though you might find us under Joburg misspelt anyway. I don't know how many G.I. Joburgs there are out there, but Insta, Twitter. My favorite home is on a Facebook group. So if you can deign to be on Zuckerberg's platform, we've got a thriving little group there, and we play with our toys. Right now, if you were on our Facebook group, you would see a thread started, not by me, may I add, of people just shooting with their mobile phones sequences of action figure play and then threading it into an ongoing storyline, which is, well, it's the way we play nowadays, boys and girls. You know, in an era of social distancing and all those many evils of the world, we can still connect with fans of this franchise and get our toys out and play together. Terrific.
Nice.
And there's a YouTube channel and a podcast. So G.I. Joburg on all podcatchers.
On all channels, everywhere, all the time. Excellent.
Over to you, Mark.
So just big thank you to Steve for
you got it.
for joining me at the late hour, which probably sounds like it's early for you, even though it's late, and also to Brian for coming on and sharing all of that brilliant stuff about your book project, and you really fingers crossed that you don't just hit your minimum target, but we start to unlock some of those tiers as well. You can find me and the rest of the Talking Jew crew on talkingjoe.co.uk, which has all of the places that you can find us on. We'll be talking later today with Diana Davis about some of her Duke collections of sketches and art. So come back and join us for that. We just yesterday spoke to Nitho Diaz, so that will be on the next podcast that goes out on Thursday. Great chat with him, all the way over from Brazil. And then, just sort of stay tuned for all of our discussion of the Disavowed era and the ongoing adventures in the ARA book. So that all leaves me just to say that when all is said and done, you can catch us down the road. Any volunteers?
Because we've been talking Joe.
We're all out of Joes. Laters.
Team effort, boys. Yeah. Full force.